Fifth point. In accordance with the law that all fine arts and crafts and accomplishments want to display themselves and have themselves appreciated, a master of hundreds of arts and crafts who possessed endless perfections and beauties made a wondrous palace in order to describe and reveal all his arts, crafts, and accomplishments and his hidden beauties. Anyone seeing the miraculous palace would immediately think of the virtues, arts, and perfections of its master and maker. Believing in them and affirming them as though seeing them, he would declare, one who was not beautiful and skilled in every way could not be the source, creator, and originator of a work so beautiful. It is as though his immaterial beauties and perfections are embodied in this palace. In exactly the same way, so long as his mind and heart are not corrupted, one who sees the exhibition of wonders and beauties of the magnificent palace of this world, that is, the universe, will realize that the palace is a mirror decorated the way it is in order to show the beauties and perfections of another. Yes, since there is nothing similar to the palace of the world from which its beauties could have been imitated and copied, certainly its maker possesses the necessary beauties in himself and in his names. It is from this that the universe is derived, and according to them that it was made. It was written like a book in order to express his beauties and names. The third proof consists of 3 points. First point. This is a truth explained in detail with powerful proofs in the third stopping place of the 32nd word. Referring detailed discussion of it to that word, here we shall consider it only with a brief allusion. We look at creatures, and especially animals and plants, and we see that governing them are a constant adorning, which points to intention and will, and makes known knowledge and wisdom, and an ordering and beautifying it is impossible to attribute to chance. There is in everything an art so delicate, a wisdom so fine, an adornment so elevated, an organization so compassionate, and situation so sweet that it is clearly understood that behind the veil of the unseen is a craftsman who wants to make his art appreciated, attract the gazes of the attentive, and please his artifacts and observers, who wants to make himself known and acquainted and loved through displaying numerous skills and perfections in each work of his art, and to make himself praised and applauded. He bestows on conscious creatures in order to please them and make them happy and friends of himself every sort of delicious bounty from unexpected places in a way it is impossible to attribute to chance. Also, to be observed are a generous treatment, a mutual acquaintance, and friendly dialogue with the tongue of disposition, and a compassionate response to supplication which make pursuit a profound compassion and elevated mercy. That is to say, the bestowal of bounty and giving of pleasure which are observed behind the making known and loved, which are as clear as the sun, arise from a genuine wish to be compassionate and powerful desire to be merciful. And this powerful desire in one absolutely self-sufficient, who has no need of anything, demonstrates certainly an utterly perfect, eternal, everlasting, peerless beauty, the nature and reality of which necessitate its wanting to be manifested and to see itself in mirrors. In order to display and see itself in various mirrors, this beauty has taken on the form of compassion and mercy, then in the mirrors of conscious beings has assumed the state of bestowal and munificence, then has taken the form of making itself known and loved, and then bestowed the light of adorning creatures and making them beautiful. Second point. Mankind's genuine, intense, and powerful love of God, and especially that of its elevated classes, and of innumerable persons whose paths are all different, points self-evidently to a peerless beauty. Indeed, it testifies to it. Yes, such a love looks only to such a beauty and necessitates it, such passion demands such loveliness. Indeed, all the praise offered by beings verbally and through the tongue of disposition looks to that pre-eternal beauty, goes to it. In the view of lovers like Shams-i Tabrizi, all the attraction, captivation, ecstasy, and drawing truths in the universe are signs of a pre-eternal and post-eternal truth of attraction. While the ecstatic motion and rotations which cause the heavenly bodies and all beings to dance and spin like moths and Mevlevi dervishes are the passionate and dutiful responses to the imperious displays of the sacred beauty of that captivating truth. Third point. All the scholars who have researched into reality have agreed that existence is pure good and light, while non-existence is pure evil and darkness. The chiefs of the people of reason and the people of the heart have agreed that, in the final analysis, all instances of good, beauty, and pleasure arise from existence, and that all evils and bad, calamities, suffering, and even sins are attributable to non-existence. If you say the source of all beauties is existence, yet also in existence are disbelief and egotism of the soul, the answer: disbelief is non-existence because it is denial of the truths of belief. The existence of egotism, however, is a form of non-existence which has acquired the color and form of existence due to a wrongful claim to ownership, not knowing the nature of man's mirror-like being and assuming the imaginary to be actual. Since the source of all beauties is existence and the source of all evils is non-existence, a necessary existence and pure eternal, everlasting being, which is the firmest and most elevated and shining existence and the one most distant from non-existence, will demand the beauty which is the most powerful and the most elevated and shining and free of any blemish. It will rather express such a beauty. Indeed, it will be such a beauty. Like all encompassing light is necessitated by the sun, so the necessary existence necessitates an eternal beauty. He gives light through it. All praise be to God for the bounty of belief. Our Sustainer, do not call us to task if we forget or do wrong. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. Note, 9 degrees of the luminous verse, for us God suffices, were going to be written, but due to certain circumstances, 3 degrees have been postponed. Reminder: since the Risale-i Nur belongs to the Qur'an and is a commentary based on proofs proceeding from it, it contains necessary, purposeful, indeed essential and beneficial repetitions, the same as the Qur'an contains subtle, wise, and necessary repetitions which cause no burden. Also, since the Risale-i Nur consists of proofs of the profusion of divine unity, which does not cause tedium, but is repeated with pleasure and zeal, its essential repetitions are not a fault and do not and should not cause burden. The 5th chapter of the 29th flash. On the degrees of, for us God suffices, and He is the best disposer of affairs. It consists of 5 points. First point. This phrase is a well-tried remedy for the sickness of human impotence and poverty. For us, God suffices, and He is the best disposer of affairs. The giver of existence is eternal existence. There is no harm, therefore, in the passing of beings, for things that are loved continue to exist through the continuance of the one who gave them existence, the necessary existence. He is the enduring maker and creator. The passing of creatures causes no sorrow. Then, for the means of love for them, their maker is enduring. He is the eternal King and Lord, so there are no regrets on the passing of His dominions, on their departing and being renewed. He is the eternal all-knowing witness. No grief is felt, therefore, at the disappearance from this world of things that are loved, for they have perpetual existence in the knowledge of that pure eternal witness and in His view. He is the enduring owner and creator, There is no pain therefore at the passing of beautiful things, for the source of their beauty, their Creator's names, are enduring. He is the enduring inheritor and raiser to life. There should be no lamenting on being parted from beloveds, for the one who will resurrect them and return them to himself is enduring. He is eternally all beauteous and glorious. There should be no distress, therefore, at the disappearance of beautiful things, for those beautiful things are the mirrors of the beautiful names, which endure together with their beauties after the disappearance of the mirrors. He is the eternal true object of love and worship, so no sorrow should be felt on the passing of metaphorical beloveds, for the true beloved is eternal. He is eternally merciful, compassionate, loving, and clement, so the passing of the apparent bestowers of bounties and compassion has no importance. It should not cause sorrow or despair, for the one whose mercy and compassion encompass all things is enduring. He is eternally beauteous, gracious, and kind, the disappearance of gracious and sympathetic beings, therefore should neither cause pain nor should importance be given it, for the one who takes the place of all of them and a single of whose manifestations they cannot altogether replace is enduring. Since he is enduring and possesses these attributes, he takes the place of every sort of transcendent, ephemeral beloved in this world. For us, God suffices, and he is the best disposer of affairs. Yes, sufficient for the immortality of this world and all it contains is the enduring existence of its owner, maker, and creator. Second point, sufficient for my immortality is God, for he is my eternal God and my eternal creator, the eternal giver of my existence, my eternal maker, my eternal owner, my eternal witness, the eternal true object of my worship, my eternal resurrector. There is therefore no harm in the disappearance of my being. There should be no sorrow, regret, or grief. For the giver of my existence is enduring, and his creation through his names is also enduring. The attributes of my person are nothing but the rays of one of his names. They exist permanently in their creator's knowledge and within his view, and do not therefore cease to exist on their passing and disappearance. Likewise, sufficient for me in respect of immortality and the pleasure of it are my knowledge, understanding, consciousness, and belief that the rays in my being of an enduring name of my God are enduring, and that the reality of my being is nothing other than a shadow of that name, and that through the mystery of its reflection or image in the mirror of my being, my reality is not itself lovable, but is lovable on account of the immortality of the various enduring things reflected in it. Third point, for us, God suffices, and he is the best disposer of affairs. For he is the necessary existence, and these transitory beings are nothing other than places reflecting the renewal of the manifestations of his existence and giving of existence. Through him, and through being connected to him, and through knowledge of him, are endless lights of existence, while without him there are the endless darkness of non-existence and the limitless pains of separation. These transitory beings are mere mirrors, and with the changing of their relative determinations, they are renewed in 6 aspects in their transcendence, disappearance, and permanence. The first, the permanent existence of their beautiful meanings and identities in the world of similitudes. The second, the permanent existence of their forms in the tablets of the world of similitudes. The third, the permanent existence of their results and fruits which look to the hereafter. The fourth, the permanent existence of their dominical glorifications represented in the preserved tablets, which is a sort of existence. The fifth, the permanent existence in the exhibitions of knowledge and eternal vistas. The sixth, the permanent existence of their spirits, if they have them, for their various functions and states in their death, transcendence, disappearance, annihilation, and their appearance and extinction is nothing other than what is demanded by the divine names. It is due to the mystery of this that beings flow like a rushing torrent on the waves of life and death, existence and non-existence. And from this function arises perpetual activity and continuous creation. I and everyone, therefore, are compelled to say, for us, God suffices, and He is the best disposer of affairs. That is, as regards existence, it is sufficient for me that I am the work of the necessary existence. To receive this illuminated existence for a passing instant is preferable to millions of years of apparent, fruitless existence. Yes, through the mystery of being related to God through belief, a minute of this existence is the equivalent of thousands of years without the relation of belief. The degrees of existence of that minute, even, are more complete and extensive than those thousands of years. Likewise, sufficient for me for existence and the value of existence is my being the art of the one whose grandeur is in the heavens and signs are on the earth, and who created the heavens and earth in 6 days. Likewise, sufficient for me for existence and its perfection is my being the artifact of the one who adorned and lit up the heavens with lamps and made dazzling the earth with flowers. Likewise, sufficient for me for pride and honor is my being the creator and totally owned slave and servant of the one in relation to whose perfection and beauty all the beauties and perfections of the universe are merely dim shadows and signs of his perfection and indications of his beauty. Likewise, sufficient for me for everything is he who stores up in tiny containers between the kaf and the nun incalculable numbers of bodies, and preserves through his power tones in a single handful of the subtle containers called seeds and grains. Likewise, sufficient for me in place of all possessors of beauty and beneficence is the all beauteous and compassionate one. For all these beautiful creatures are merely ephemeral mirrors for the renewal of the lights of his beauty in the course of the seasons, the centuries, and the ages. And all these recurring bodies and successive fruits of the spring and summer are places of manifestation for the renewal of his continuous bestowal in the passage of creatures, days, and years. Likewise, sufficient for me for life and its true nature is my being a map, index, summary, balance, and measure of the manifestations of the names of the Creator, of life and death. Likewise, sufficient for me for life and its functions is my being a word, inscribed with the pen of power, pointing to and making understood the names of the absolutely powerful one, the ever-living and self-subsistent, by my life receiving the manifestations of my Creator's essential attributes, and His are the most beautiful names. Likewise, sufficient for me for life and its rights is my displaying it among my brother creatures, and proclaiming it to them, and exhibiting in the view of the Creator of the universe my being decked out in the manifestations of my Creator's names, who has adorned me with the bejeweled dress of my being, the gown of my inborn nature, and the necklace of my well-ordered life, which is ornamented with the gifts of His mercy. Likewise, sufficient for me for the rights of my life are my understanding the salutations of living creatures to the grandeur of life, and my observation of them, and my testifying to them. Likewise, sufficient for me for the rights of my life is my being adorned and made beautiful with the embossed jewels of His bodies, to present them consciously because of my belief to the view of the pure eternal monarch. Likewise, sufficient for me for life and its pleasures is my knowledge, realization, awareness, and belief that I am His slave, artifact, and creature, needy and wanting for Him, and He is my Creator, compassionate to me, who nurtures and raises me munificently, graciously, through His bestowal, as befits His wisdom and mercy. Likewise, sufficient for me for life and its value is my being a measure through my absolute impotence, poverty, and weakness to the degrees of the power of the absolutely powerful one, the degrees of mercy of the absolutely compassionate one, and the levels of strength of the possessor of absolute strength. Likewise, sufficient for me for perfection is my knowledge that my God is absolutely perfect, and whatever things there are in the universe which are perfect, they are signs of his perfection and indications of it. Likewise, sufficient for me for perfection in myself is belief in God, because for man, belief is the source of all perfections. Likewise, sufficient for me for all my needs sought through the tongues of my various faculties is my God, sustainer and creator, the giver of my form. His are the most beautiful names. He feeds me and gives me to drink. He nurtures, raises, administers, and perfects me. He is limitless in glory, and his favors are comprehensive. Fourth point. Sufficient for me for all my wishes is he who opens up from a fluid through his subtle art, subtle power, wisdom, and his subtle dominicality, my form and that of all my fellow living creatures. Likewise, sufficient for me for all my aims is he who made me, opened my ears and eyes, included in my body my tongue and my heart, and placed in them and in my other faculties innumerable precise scales to weigh up the contents of the treasuries of his mercy. Similarly, he placed in my tongue, heart, and nature countless sensitive instruments to gauge the varieties of the treasuries of his names. Likewise, sufficient for me is he who, through his glorious Godhead, beautiful mercy, grand dominicality, munificent clemency, vast power, and subtle wisdom, included in my insignificant, lowly person, and weak and wanting being, all these members and faculties, limbs and systems, senses and feelings, inner faculties and spiritual powers, to allow me to know all the varieties of his bounties and comprehend most of the manifestations of his names. Fifth point. I and all men should declare thankfully and proudly, sufficient for me is the one who created me and took me out of the darkness of non-existence, bestowing on me light of being. Likewise, sufficient for me is the one who bestowed on me the bounty of life, which gives all things to those who possess it, and stretches out its hands to all things. Likewise, sufficient for me is the one who made me a human being and bestowed on me the bounty of humanity, which makes man the microcosm, greater in meaning than the macrocosm. Likewise, sufficient for me is the one who made me a believer and bestowed on me the bounty of belief, which makes this world and the hereafter two tables laden with bounties, and offers them to the believer with the hand of belief. Likewise, sufficient for me is the one who made me a member of the community of his beloved, Muhammad, upon whom be blessings and peace, and bestowed on me love of God, and being loved by him, which are found in belief and are the highest degrees of human perfection, and through this love springing from belief, expanded the extent to which believers could benefit to the infinite contents of the spheres of contingency and necessity. Likewise, sufficient for me is the one who, not making me inanimate or an animal or leaving me in misguidance, gave me preference with regard to nature, species, religion, and belief over the majority of creatures. Praise and thanks are therefore due to him alone. Likewise, sufficient for me is the one who made me a comprehensive place of the manifestations of his names, and in accordance with the meaning of the hadith, the heavens and the earth contain me not, I am contained in the heart of my believing servant. Bestowed on me a bounty which the universe could not contain, that is, man's essential nature is a comprehensive place of manifestation of all the divine names manifested in the universe. Likewise, sufficient for me is he who bought from me the property of his I had in order to preserve it, and later returned it to me, and give me paradise as the price. Praise and thanks be to Him to the number of particles of my being multiplied by the number of atoms in existence. Sufficient for me is my sustainer, may God be exalted, and the light of Muhammad, God's blessings be upon him. There is no God but God. Sufficient for me is my sustainer, may God be exalted. My heart's inner life is the remembrance of God. The remembrance of Ahmed, God's blessings be upon him. There is no God but God.